Hi, this is Joe again with another review. For the sake of this video, I'm going to be discussing the 1986 film Crocodile Dundee, starring Paul Hogan, Linda Kozlowski, Mark Blum. Of course, previously I had done a review of all three Crocodile Dundee movies in one shot, and of course, me being a nitpicker of my own reviews, to begin with, I figured I wasn't totally satisfied. I should give each movie its own proper video, and that's what I'm going to be doing for this video and the next two others, because there's three films in the series, and I figured and since this is also the 35th anniversary year of the original Crocodile Dundee, so I figured do a proper review of the Crocodile Dundee series. We're doing one movie at a time in these videos, instead of doing all three in one video. So that's what I'm going to be doing for you now, and I'm starting with, of course, the original 1986 movie Crocodile Dundee. And of course, this movie was a huge hit, and it was like the biggest. And Paramount was the beneficiary, because Paramount was the U.S. distribution. Came out, had the U.S. distribution rights for Crocodile Dundee, and it became the second biggest movie that came out that year, behind Top Gun. Top Gun was the biggest movie that came out in 1986 as an overall movie, but as a comedy, Crocodile Dundee was the biggest comedy movie, and I think maybe like Star Trek 4 was also up there. So Paramount made it big from those three movies alone in 1 year. Well, the original Crocodile Dundee movie is also one of two. The other reason why I was so much in Star Trek 4 is both of them are pretty similar as a fish out of water story, which both Star Trek 4 and Crocodile Dundee were guilty of, and that's having a fish out of water story. Now, Crocodile Dundee, for those few of you who have not seen this movie, Crocodile Dundee is a story about a guy who lives in the Northern Territory of Australia, and a little out of the way town called Walkabout Creek. Now I know of I think Walkabout Creek is a fictional town in the Northern Territory of Australia, and what happened was a reporter named Sue Charlton, who was a New York City reporter, did one particular story. You don't know what the original story she was in Australia for, but she heard this other story about this guy who got his who got his leg, allegedly got his leg bit off by a crocodile, and he ends up surviving. So she wanted to do a story on this guy and see how he survived. So she goes up there to check it out, to check out the story, and she does, and she ends up falling in love with Crocodile. Major spoiler: she ends up falling in love with Crocodile Dundee, and Dundee falls in love with her. And of course, the first half of the movie, it details how he lived, where was remnants of his bow, to go there first, or having to go there first, and then they met with an Aborigine in the backwoods. They met an actual Aborigine. Unfortunately, you never see this guy again in the other two movies. Unfortunately, which is a shame, because in the three movies altogether, you see different Aborigines in the three films. Now I don't know why they can't bring back other Aborigines for the other film, or the original Aborigine you made in the first film back in the other two films. I don't know why. I don't do the casting for these movies. Just watch them. So Sue, who played with Linda Kozlowski in a film debut, and a few years later, she actually does marry Paul Hogan, who plays Crocodile Dundee in reality. And so what happened was, Sue decides to get the idea, hey, Crocodile, Mick, why don't you come to me to New York? Because Mick, who's Crocodile Dundee's real first name. It says and says to her when they were out there in the woods that he has never been to an actual city before. He always lives, in Walkabout Creek or in Northern Territory, and it's implied that he's never even been to Sydney, Australia, and he's Australian. So she comes up with the idea, why don't you come to New York City? I have to go home to New York. I live in New York City. Why don't you go home with me? And he says, she goes, I don't know. And then she was able to talk him into it and convince him to come to New York. And of course, one of the funniest scenes in the movie is the scene where he's on the airplane. The airplane takes off, and it's the first time that Mick Dundee is supposed to be on an airplane, and the plane takes off, and he yells out, Jesus Christ, as the plane takes off. And of course, when he's in New York, he goes on all these adventures, and of course, he had to suspend your disbelief in this thing, because Dundee has this big hunting knife. Right? First night in New York, he's walking down Fifth Avenue. You could tell it's Fifth Avenue in New York City, folks, and the place is mild with people, mild with traffic. So he's standing on a light post. This cop comes over on a horseback, comes over and brings it back to the Plaza Hotel and gives Mick his knife back. Now, in New York City, anywhere in the United States, around the world, if you're carrying a hunting knife, if you're not actually going hunting in the middle of New York City, you're going to get your ass arrested. He did not get arrested. And wait a minute, how can he not get arrested? He's carrying a concealed weapon, for God's sake. But it's true. He doesn't get arrested for carrying the knife, folks. Only in the movies can a guy with a knife with a 6-foot blade does not get arrested in New York City. It's suspending disbelief in Alma, folks. And of course, they want the movie where he gets mugged. He's with Sue. It looks like it's by the Brooklyn Bridge. And he gets mugged. And this black guy comes over and says, "Got a knife, buddy?" Says, "Yeah, sure." And says, "And your wallet." And Sue goes, "Mick, give him your wallet." And I said, "What for?" "Because he's got a knife." Said, "That's not a knife." And he pulls out his big hunting knife. Says, "That's a knife." And he cuts up a sleeve of the guy's jacket, and the guy goes, "Shit," and he runs off. That's the scene that everybody remembers, is that scene where he pulls out the knife, says, "That's a knife," and he takes care of a mugger. But of course, this movie does have some scenes that even in 1986, and this was a PG-rated movie, folks. And there's this one particular scene where Dundee's in a bar, and he finds out that a woman who has been flirting with him is actually a guy wearing a woman's dress. And he puts his hand up the person's crouch and finds out that it actually has a male anatomy there, not a female anatomy. And he says, "Hey, there's a guy dressed up as a woman," And of course, later on in the movie, when Sue takes Mick to a party, he sees a woman who speaks with a deep, husky voice. This guy was more, or this person was more of a transvestite than the other woman that was sitting, and the person that was sitting on Dundee in the bar, because this person sounds more like a man than the other person did. And he does the same thing, or Dundee does. Puts his hand up the person's crotch. He finds out it's actually a woman and not a guy. And he says to Sue, or Dundee says to Sue, "Oh, just making sure. That's making sure there's actually a woman I'm talking to, not a guy." And says, "Ah." And then of course there's also a scene where Dundee meets a couple of prostitutes. And also a scene where he asks the chauffeur, who by the way is played by Reginald Johnson, from Family Matters, says, "What tribe are you in?" Because he's a black guy, he thinks he was in a tribe, like all the black guys in Australia, or the Aborigines were in certain tribes, Aboriginal tribes, I should say, in Australia. So Dundee thinks that the chauffeur was in a tribe. It's like stuff. It's like scenes like that. In this day and age, they count this movie. But of course, you know, where the I mean, you go, if you, those of you who haven't watched this movie in 35 years, watch this movie for the first time and say you know where the story is going to go. Even in 1986, you knew where these two characters were going to hook up and fall in love, which I'm not giving anything away that people don't already know. They do fall in love at the end of this movie. There's this funny scene at the subway where she declares his love for Dundee, and it's a funny way that they, did it, because it's on the other side of the subway platform, and it's really funny how they how they did it. Got two other New Yorkers involved in that, and it was really funny and a clever way to do it, and this movie, as the plot holes I mentioned already, for some stupid reason it actually worked. And like I said at the top of this review, it was like the second biggest money-making movie, behind Top Gun. It was definitely the biggest money-making comedy of 1986, and it's probably the second biggest money-making movie behind Top Gun. Top Gun was the biggest action movie in 86, and Crocodile Dundee was the biggest comedy film of that year. So that's my review of the original Crocodile Dundee movie. Please click on the video, please rate it, please subscribe to my channel, please forward this video on your Facebook pages. You can check out all my reviews and all on my YouTube channel at rallyc.com, so with WDY and then C.com. Homepage you're running review of Chris Lee Moore, and please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.